Okay, we're going to talk about the Section 6 carbon dioxide emissions assignment. So what we're doing here is we're going to start by opening this Excel sheet that's attached. And we're going to open this up. Now this is the sheet that you're going to submit for a grade. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. I have some different countries here. I have how many millions of tons of carbon they produce, their populations, and their share of global total. Alright, so we have all this information. Now what are we going to do with it? So if we go back to the assignment, I'm trying to figure out 5 things basically. 1, what is the average CO2 emissions of the top 10 countries? Then I want to calculate per capita emissions for each country. We're going to say which we think is better gauge per capita or total emissions. We're going to find the mean and the median of the per capita. Then we're going to write a paragraph about environmentalists. Okay, so we have 5 things to complete here. So one thing I want to do is kind of show you a way we can manipulate our spreadsheet to kind of make life easier. Okay, if I want to know the average CO2, well, I need to put the average in. I got to put it somewhere reasonable. So one thing I can do is just go up here and right click on 15 and do insert. Okay, that gave me an extra row here. I can simply just type in the word average. And over here to the right, use my Excel command, equals average. Okay, so I added in a row, I put equals average. I'm going to highlight what I want the average of. And there you go, there's my average emissions. Now, anytime you adjust a spreadsheet, go ahead and highlight what you did and make it a different color. That way I know, what you did as opposed to what was already there. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put in my per capita. So let's add that column to the spreadsheet. So let's right click on D. So right click on the letter D, insert. Now we have another row. And let's call this our per capita emissions. Okay, so now here's where it gets kind of funny. Because I want to do emissions divided by people. So if I go up here and I put equals, click on China's emissions divided by China's people, and you get 0. That's odd. One thing I can do is I can increase my decimals. Still 0. Lots of zeros. Okay, and you end up with this number. And you're thinking, man, that's a really small number of tons per person. And that's because this number is in millions and this number is not. So what I want to do is turn this number into standard notation. Okay, so delete that out. And the way I want to do that, I'm just going to make another column. So right click on C, insert, and we're going to go back here to emissions, but it's not going to be in millions now. I got to make that standard notation. Now if this is in millions and I want this to be not in millions, just standard notation, I need to add 6 zeros, which means I'm taking this number times 1 million. Alright, and so now we can compare this number with this number. This is 2,395,000,000. This is the same number, just with the zeros instead of the word million. So now when I do my per capita, I can take the emissions divided by the people. They're both now in a standard form. You can divide them, it'll make sense. Okay, and you get all this stuff here. Now when it comes to rounding, let's use 2 decimals. So I can decrease my decimal with this button up here to 2. Alright, and so you're going to want to do that for all these countries. Now one thing that's really cool is once you've done it once, just click and drag. Click and drag. Alright, and so it'll copy the formulas over if you set it up that way. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's make sure that we adjust these by highlighting them. So all the stuff that I've done that's new, you can see highlighted, and whatnot. Okay, so now that this is all done here, we want to figure out what the mean per capita is. and the median per capita. Alright, and so when I'm looking at per capita, I'm looking at this column. So I need to find the mean and median of the numbers in this column. So you have your commands for mean, your commands for median. You know, what I would do is I would just put those down here. So then you'd have these two cells with those numbers. Okay, so I'm not going to do that right now, but what I will do is, let's just say, you know, this comes out to 6, that comes out to 4. I don't want to use your formula, so I'm just typing the numbers. Is you can take all this now, center it, and then right click. Once you have the whole thing highlighted, right click on it, go down here to format cells, and go to border. So these are all the different line types you can do, and this is kind of an outline of what this looks like. So this text here is this text, that text is that text, and so forth. So one thing I like to do is just do a thick border and then click on outline. That'll put a thick border all around the outline. Then click on a thin line and click inside. So inside, all these lines are going to be thin, and just hit OK. So it just looks a little nicer with that on there. I can also highlight the titles here and kind of give it a nice, not yellow, nice, I don't like either of those greens. I'll do that one. A nice green background. And so this is basically just a way of making it look a little nicer, put some borders on there. So, you know, if you put a table off to the side, I'd go ahead and do that. Alright, so now that we've done those things, if we go back here, the only other thing you need to do is you're going to write a few paragraphs, 3 and 5. So once again, when you do your paragraphs, I just go up to Insert, go to Text Box, make a text box. Now you can do, you know, one text box for question 3, and then, you know, make another, you know, insert text box, do question 5. Or if you really wanted to, you could put them in the same text box, but it might be easier to have them separate. That way, if you need to move them around, you have more flexibility there. Okay, so your goal is to, you know, add the emissions column, add per capita emissions, figure those out, find the average, and then find your mean and median per capita. You know, use a formula for these two numbers. That's very important. I want to make sure when I click here, I don't want to see 6 or 4. I want to see equals average equals median. You know, here I want to see formulas in here. What divided by what? I don't want to see. You type in those numbers. All right, so, you know, don't watch the video and just retype these numbers, and I want you to include the formulas. Here I want to see equals average, not 599. Okay, if I see 599, that's wrong. If I see 1.76, that's wrong. I want to see that formula. All right, so go ahead and complete that, and have fun.